First of all, welcome everyone. We're doing this in a hybrid format, so we want everyone who is online to be able to participate fully, as well as everyone who is in the room with us, which is a very good number of people. Very happy with everyone coming out, especially on a very hot summer evening. Maybe everyone just really wanted to be in the air conditioning. So what we'll do in terms of if we get a question from in the room, we'll repeat it so that everyone online can hear. Other than that, I will hand it over to Bowden to get started.
Great. Thank you very much, Katie. Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised to see this many people here tonight. Welcome, everyone. What you're going to see is sort of accumulation of all the work that's gone in. And I know we've been at this for a while now, coming on 2 years, but you're going to see the inputs from all these different places, from all the agencies that we deal with, the county, yourselves, the school board. It's all been baked into the final sets of documents and online, and the things you see around this room today. This is one open house that we want to engage with you on this final concept that we've come up with, which we think addresses a lot of the things that we've heard along the way. But we want to hear that from you today. And then taking in your input from this will form the big submission that we take before council later in the fall. So that's the purpose of today. We have our project team here with us today. Beside me is Katie Amy, who's going to be controlling the hybrid nature of this meeting for us today, which is a bit tricky, but we're going to try and do it.
Possibly not well.
We also have Andrea Furness, our Manager of Development Services, here to answer any questions for you. James Griffith as well, a supervisor for planning. A key member of our team, Luke McDonald, our engineering manager, is not here today. It's his anniversary, but we have his boss here today to answer any engineering type questions that you may have of us. So with that, on the line we have WSP, who have been retained to help us with this project, and Nadia Desante and Jill McDonald are online, and Nadia will be taking you through the bulk of the presentation on the secondary plan. So can we try and get Nadia on?
She's here. Yeah, sorry, just bear with me for a moment. I have somehow.
While she does that, in orientation, there are washrooms just outside here on your right for those who need them. There's obviously, if you haven't seen it, coffee and some sweets at the back. Help yourselves. And after the presentation, of course, we can stick around and answer any questions you have about it. Nadia, can you hear us?
Yes. Am I ready to go?
I believe so. You have a captive audience.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and for being participating both in person and online. It's nice to see, recognize some familiar faces. Jill and I are happy to be here, and I just want to run through today's presentation, which will probably take about 30 minutes. We kindly ask that you keep all questions to the end, just because it'll be easier to facilitate both the in-person and online questions. So we're going to give you an update on the process. It's been some months, but as Bowden mentioned, we've done quite a bit of work, including and much of that work will be at least highlighted for you, and the project website has all of the documents. But we're going to do an overview of the draft Amherstview West secondary plan, the draft official plan amendment, so that's OPA, and the draft zoning bylaw amendment, so that's the ZBLA acronym. I'm going to touch upon the draft urban design guidelines, the future development area evaluation of options. So the future development area, some of you may have participated in the community workshop back in September. So that's the result of that workshop. So that's letter E. And then I'll touch upon the municipal class environmental assessment process, and then next steps. So we are in the final phase of this project, and this is the public open house that's required under the Planning Act. So as Bowden mentioned, we are here to hear comments as well. If you have comments or questions after tonight's meeting, we're open to receiving them as well. So when, again, just a reminder, because there may be some new people to the project and the process, the secondary plan is going to address the extension of Amherstview to the west, and it will accommodate future growth and development in the community for the next 25 years to the year 2046. The secondary plan considers the future needs and priorities for the new community, including housing types, urban design, community amenities, protection of the natural environment, servicing, stormwater management, and transportation. It is an integrated process with the municipal class EA, which is governed by a different piece of legislation. So we will move to the next slide. So we were in person last June for a public open house, and that was basically an update on the project. And we want to thank you for those who participated in that and continue to be part of this process in developing and planning for this next community. The open house in June was at the Amherstview Community Hall, and we presented the evaluation of options and the draft preferred option of the land use plan. Following that, we held a community design workshop. So that was on a Saturday in September. And that was where we were looking at the vision and ideas for future Main Street, which were referring to the extension of Amherst Drive to the west to support the development of the draft urban design guidelines, and also some high-level land use concepts. And the images, well, especially the one in the bottom right-hand corner, shows one of the group's discussions on those topics from the workshop. So what we heard from those last two larger community events was support for a range of residential uses and typologies or built forms, as well as having even more commercial uses in Amherstview. We've heard conversations and requests for, more space, more commercial space for coffee shops, sort of the, places where you can walk to, and those kind of personal service uses as well. There was some concern about the potential of runoff impacts to the existing residential areas that are in the future development area, and then the potential traffic congestion along County Road 6. We also heard general support for the Main Street idea in Amherstview to have that quaint, old-fashioned village character in keeping with the natural surrounding environment. So our draft urban design guidelines aim to pick up on that. And what does that look and feel like? Those were questions that the participants from the workshop were asked. So we've carried forward much of that input. And then there were also some suggestions for additional road access into the secondary plan area to help with traffic circulation, and also considerations for school traffic. I want to also mention that we've been engaging with the various Indigenous communities throughout the project, including a recent meeting with the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, Alderville First Nation, Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, Métis Nation of Ontario, and Curve Lake First Nation. So we definitely have had some correspondence with Alderville First Nations as well. So they have been engaged throughout the project, just like the public has. For all of the project engagement events that were public, there are, as we heard, memos on the project website if you wanted to go back and look at those. Since the last two engagement events from 2023, the County of Lennox and Addington initiated their official plan review, and they released a growth analysis and urban land needs report to support that review. So that's a common study that is required when a municipality or county does an official plan review. And the findings in that report that are specific to Amherstview West include these 3 bullets that are 4 bullets really in the report. So it's basically saying that Amherstview is anticipated to have a lack of about 7 gross hectares of land for residential development, or 92 units to the year 2046. So Watson, who was retained by the county, recommended that additional 7 gross hectares of land be accommodated in Amherstview West. And then our residential growth analysis was revised based on their work to include, so the 7 gross hectares equals 5.25 net hectares. So the difference between gross and net is the net, you net out land for your roads and servicing. So we've accommodated this additional residential land supply needs in the preferred land use plan. There were no changes to the commercial employment forecast as a result of the county growth study. So we, through consultation with the township staff as well as the public, we've accommodated even more commercial growth, even though the growth studies didn't require it. We've listened to the community, and we've included additional commercial lands. So I'm going to turn over to Jill, who's going to present the draft secondary plan and the key changes that we've made that hopefully maybe some of your comments will be recognized either through tonight's presentation or if you do look at the documents.
Thank you, Nadia, and good evening, everyone. So I'm going to spend a few minutes to highlight the key points of the draft secondary plan, which is now available on the township's website for review. And we're really hoping that this evening's presentation can kind of serve as a guide if you're reviewing the draft secondary plan and other documents, which we'll go into further in the presentation. In terms of comments on these documents, those can be submitted through Bowden or Katie, and we're requesting comments by August 8th of next week. So for the draft secondary plan, we've developed the vision statement for Amherstview West, and we presented this to the community last year at the open house. So there's not been too many changes because we've workshopped through that with those who provide input at the open house and at the design workshop. But I'll read it out for everybody. So the vision statement for Amherstview West is: Amherstview West celebrates its distinctive and scenic location along Lake Ontario and proximity to Parrots Bay Conservation Area. As an extension of the greater Amherstview community, Amherstview West will grow and develop as a distinct, family-oriented and climate change resilient area with a quaint small town feel, providing a balance and excellent quality of life for residents and a peaceful and natural environment to live, grow, and visit. So that's been developed over the past year or so through our various engagement events, and that's reflected in the draft secondary plan. And then on the right of the screen, we have the guiding principles for the secondary plan, and there are 10 of them, and those kind of form the basis for the preparation of land use policies for Amherstview West. They touch on direction for the future residential and commercial development in the new community, the protection of the existing character of Amherstview West, including the preservation of natural heritage features. The guiding principles also look to developing an appropriate transportation network in the secondary plan area, amongst others. All right, so for the draft land use plan itself, as Nadia mentioned, we've made a few adjustments over the past few months based on input we've received through the engagement events, as well as from discussions and input received from township staff departments, external agencies. So I'll walk through a few of those now. So the secondary plan area is shown on the map here. So as Nadia went through in a few slides before, there was approximately 7 gross hectares of residential land added to the secondary plan as recommended by the county growth study. So that is now shown kind of in the center of the secondary plan area here. Up in the northwest corner, there are lands that are designated as environmental protection, and these are part of the Parrots Bay Conservation Authority. So we're just showing that They are already actually designated as environmental protection, but we're just showing that to show that this land use designation will be carried forward. In the lighter green are parks and open space blocks. So there are 2 larger parks blocks in Amherstview West proposed, or 3, sorry. The size and location of these blocks has been adjusted slightly per input that we received from the Township Parks and Recreation Department. At the center of the secondary plan area with this larger blue square is an institutional block, and this is intended to set aside land for a future elementary school. So through discussions with the local school board, they had requested that this land be allocated for future needs. So that's shown in the land use plan. Looking to the south, there's a large area of residential land that is proposed to be directly abutting County Road 6. So that's a change that has been added since the last open house. And then finally, in the light blue, we've been working with township engineering staff on location of conceptual municipal stormwater management ponds that are required to service the new community. So those are shown as well. So on the land use plan, you can see all these colors, and those represent different land use designations that are proposed for different parcels of the secondary plan. I'll take the next few slides to go through what that means. Currently, most of the lands in Amherstview West are designated as fringe area in the township official plan. And what that means is that development is currently not permitted on these lands until a secondary plan has been prepared. So through the secondary plan process, most of the lands in Amherstview West will be redesignated through an official plan amendment to these designations, which I'll walk through. So I'll start with the residential designations. So we're proposing residential designations for low density, medium density, and high density residential. And these designations are generally aligned with the existing residential designations in the township official plan. So the low density residential designation permits lower density forms such as single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, smaller townhouse developments, and duplexes. The existing residential properties along Bath Road, Bayview Drive, and Parrots Bay Lane are proposed to be designated to low-density residential to better reflect the existing uses here. For medium-density residential, this permits from triplexes up to low-rise apartments, and low-rise consists of 4 stories or less. Street townhouses are also permitted in this designation. And then finally, for high density residential, this is indicated by this red block at County Road 6 and Amherst Drive. And this will permit higher density residential forms such as apartment dwellings from 5 to 8 stories and stacked townhouse dwellings. So moving on to the commercial designations. So the first is the mixed use commercial designation, which is shown in pink here. This is a new land use designation that's not currently in the township's official plan. This is proposed to primarily apply to the extension of Amherst Drive to the west. And as part of a workshop last year, we really focused on this area in the secondary plan to look at the kind of uses that would be desirable for this designation. So for mixed use commercial, a minimum building height of 2 stories would be required, and small scale commercial uses are proposed to be permitted, as well as dwelling units in the upper stories of a commercial building. Highway commercial is shown with this purple block, and this permits more of like a general commercial use. So some of your more maybe auto-related uses like grocery stores or a hardware store, for example. So this is shown along County Road 6, more to the north of the secondary plan area, and residential uses are not permitted in this designation. Institutional, as I mentioned before, is shown with this dark blue. So that designation will permit uses, from schools, daycares, places of worship, community facilities. And as I mentioned, that we have the block allocated for future elementary school there. In the green is the parks and open space designation, and that will permit public parks, cultural facilities, community and recreational facilities. And then finally, for the environmental protection designation shown in the top left here in the kind of dark green, this is an existing designation in the township official plan. So uses that are permitted here are those that are more so for the preservation of the environment and conservation, as well as passive outdoor recreation uses. Not shown here, but I'll get into later in a few slides, are two policy overlays. So these include the environmentally sensitive areas overlay and the natural hazards overlay. So these two overlays are also in the township official plan. And so these overlays and policies would apply in addition to those land use designations that I mentioned before, and I'll get more into that. And finally, as you can see on the map, a good portion of the secondary plan area is shown in gray. And so those lands are proposed to be designated as future development area. And what that means is that in order for development to proceed on these lands, those will require a future official plan amendment, an amendment to the secondary plan to permit development. So with the future development area, only existing uses that are on the ground at time of adoption of a secondary plan will be permitted. So for draft secondary plan, in addition to the land use plan, there are two other schedules or maps. Schedule B shows a proposed transportation network in Amherstview West, and this shows proposed roads and trails. So the proposed roads are shown with this dashed line, and these include major and minor collector roads. And proposed multi-use pathways are shown with the red dotted line and cross the secondary plan area. So as part of the official plan amendment, the township official plan schedule will be amended to show this proposed road and trail network. The third and final schedule in the secondary plan illustrates environmental constraints. So that goes back to the two policy overlays that I mentioned on a couple of slides ago. So those are the environmentally sensitive areas overlay and the regulated area hazard lands overlay. So for the ESA or environmentally sensitive areas overlay, the township official plan directs that certain natural heritage features be part of this overlay. So that could include things like water courses, unevaluated wetlands, wildlife corridors, lands that are within a certain distance from significant natural heritage features. So for lands that are within this environmentally sensitive areas overlay, the township may require the preparation of an environmental impact study should a plan application be submitted. For the regulated area overlay, this overlay is existing in the official plan, and we're not proposing any changes to this. This overlay includes lands that could be deemed unsafe for development due to flooding or potential erosion, and it generally includes the lands that abut the Lost Creek watercourse that crosses diagonally in the secondary plan area, and lands in proximity to Parrots Bay. So again, the township may require certain technical studies like a soil study, geotechnical study at the time of the plan application. So now I'm going to pass it back to Nadia, and she's going to go through the remainder of the supporting secondary plan documents.
Thanks, Jill. And I'm just gonna get closer to Jill because I've got this sun beaming through the window and there's no blind that I can use to cover it. So I apologize, but I am partially in the sun. So the draft official plan amendment, or OPA. So this is essentially the amendment to implement the secondary plan. But the amendment is to the township's official plan. So it's like bringing the secondary plan into the township's official plan. And right now on this slide, I'll speak to just the official plan amendment. So those land use designations that Jill presented are illustrated here. And it would get carried in by council approval of the official plan amendment to enable the secondary plan and the implementing schedules to be approved, essentially. And so the official plan amendment will propose a new section that will be specific to Amherstview West. So any policies from the secondary plan that you see would get carried forward into this new section. This new section would be in the township's official plan. There's also a few policy references that we need to amend, which is noted here. And then definitely more schedules to be included. The detailed schedules will be part of the next statutory public meeting. And so the full draft official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment with all the schedules will be presented at that time. They're technical, but important for the public to see. And also to note that the secondary plan policies will prevail over the parent township official plan if there's a conflict. We've worked with township staff to ensure that there isn't a conflict, but you know, there might be something that we've missed, but that's generally the direction. Of course, some of the plans, or sorry, some of the policies for the secondary plan will refer back to the you know, the township's official plan. For example, environmental protection area will go to the parent sections. So now we have that official plan amendment. So that categorizes the blocks of land from a land use perspective. And then the legal instrument to implement that is through a zoning bylaw amendment, which also would go to council for review and approval. And we have shown all of those colored land use parcels of land with all those colors that Jill went through are labeled with alphabetical letters, and they all represent different zones that we're proposing to include to implement. So remember the table with the colors of the use of the designations and the uses that would then be transferred into, for example, R4 residential fourth density exception zone. And so the draft zoning bylaw amendment shows key changes that are from the main township zoning bylaw. The changes that we're proposing are in bold. That pink block, that mixed use commercial block that Jill pointed to, that is on the north side of Amherst Drive extension, that would be a new zone. So right now, the township zoning bylaw doesn't have a mixed use commercial zone. So we're proposing to add a new zone to implement that. I'm not going to get into too many presentation details about, you know, lot area, et cetera. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to provide a high level overview of the planning tool that would implement the official plan amendment and ultimately the secondary plan. So as I mentioned before, the draft urban design guidelines have been culminated through township staff comments, public comments, best practices. This is available also on the project website, and any comments from the public, from the As We Heard It memos. You'll see that there are many that have been reflected here to give the local flavor and nature and desirability from the local community's perspective. We've also reflected comments from the township's building department and engineering department, as well as from that community design workshop in September. I'm gonna just scooch over a little more. We're just gonna have to move our computer. Sorry. Okay, so now the future development areas. So future development area are the lands in gray. The community workshop that we had in September 2023 had a series of activities that we asked the participants to come up with land use plans. And there was a guided session, facilitated session, and there were certain parameters that we had to look and consider. For example, another school. So there was, through consultation with school boards, there was a school board that said, we don't need a school in the 25-year planning horizon, but we should plan for one in post 25-year. So the plan that you're seeing right now is the proposed land use plan. The future development area memo is on the project website for you to view. And you will see through that memo the options that came out of the workshop, and then ultimately the preferred land use, or the preferred land use plan based on the evaluation. So the future development options provide the high level land uses, and the future development area memo is meant to be a guide for township staff, for those who come in later. It's not going to be approved by council. This was a directive of council through community input that what WSP was asked to look at these lands as a whole. And so we have done that, and you will see through the public input, through conversations with township staff, you will see the proposed collector roads through the secondary plan. So when you're doing a secondary plan and master planning, of course, there's the provincial guidelines, provincial policy statement, and we have addressed the comments about showing where potential future collector roads could go. These are conceptual. They, the exact alignment is for a study at another day. But in general, the higher density uses that are in the land use plan in the future development area continue along Amherst Drive, west extension, and centered in the Amherstview west, so in the center of the new community. And lower density continues to be sort of westward to complement the existing residential uses and areas on Bath Road, Bayview Drive, and Parrots Bay Lane. And again, the future development area plan, the land use plan, is not policy in the secondary plan, but it will serve as a guiding document for future planning of these lands. So essentially, when the lands that are in the 25-year horizon are, getting close to being built out, the township will have to look at and engage in a very similar process to what we're in right now, to really look at the future development area lands and use the land use plan that was identified and do a check and balance. Does it still make sense? Do we need more types of housing? Things can change, right? In 25 years. So again, the future development area plan and memo are to be a guide for future years ahead of, future years ahead, so post 25 years, to look at what was thought of, and maybe some things will stay the same and maybe some things will change. And just to touch upon the municipal class environmental assessment process. So again, it's it's under the separate legislation, which is the Ontario Environmental Assessment Act, but it's integrated. So the secondary plan process is under the Ontario Planning Act, and this is the Environmental Assessment Act. And so basically the integrated process means that we've been having meetings that fulfill both requirements under the acts. And environmental assessments consider the whole environment, not just the natural environment. So we look at social, economic, cultural, and natural factors when we are evaluating land uses and, for example, the collector roads. So the Provincial Ministry of Environment Conservation and Parks, MECP, is the approval authority for environmental assessments. The EA process, it enables certain classes of municipal infrastructure improvements. So example, by the approval of the secondary plan and the environmental study report, it means that the conceptual collector roads have been, approved under the phase 1 and phase 2 process of the MCEA process. And also extensions of municipal water and sewer. So because it is a separate process, has a separate piece of legislation, separate approval authority, we have also prepared a draft master plan environmental study report, or ESR. This is also on the township's website, and it explains and reviews the process, very similar to what we've indicated today, the evaluation of alternatives. So again, those alternatives of the land uses were presented last June, the recommended servicing strategy, the servicing documents that we've prepared for this project are also online. Summary of our community and Indigenous consultation, as well as our engagement with our external agencies. And it includes commitments, mitigation, and monitoring measures, as well as a conclusion. So the secondary plan, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, urban design guidelines go to Township Council for approval. The ESR goes to the ministry for approval. So there will be a 30-day review period when the environmental study report is posted on the ministry's registry. So in terms of next steps, so again, as Jill mentioned, we're looking for comments on the draft secondary plan, official plan amendment. Any questions that you may have or comments on any of the material that's on the website, specifically the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and final urban design guidelines, we would like to hear from you. Again, the future development area memo is just for information. It's not going for approval. So we would come back to the public for the statutory public meeting. So any comments that we receive through this process and through this meeting would be reviewed and carried forward. We would present back at the statutory public meeting on any changes. The detailed schedules for the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment will be presented. And then again, there's a public forum there to make any written or oral comments. Following that, we would then bring the secondary plan, OPA, and zoning to council for approval. And then under the EA Act, there's a combined notice of decision and MCA notice of completion that's issued. So again, there is appeal and review periods afterwards, as noted here. So we are happy to answer any questions and comments tonight through those who have joined us in person and online. And you can also send us questions or comments to Bowden at secondaryplan@loyalist.ca. We are keeping track of comments, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts. And I thank you for your patience in our presentation, and I'll turn it over to Katie and Bowden for facilitating the questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadia. Let's start with the people in the room first, and then we'll go online and see if there's any questions there. Are there any questions from anyone in the room based on what you've seen today or otherwise?
I have one, the high density, which is at the beginning of what they call like going to be. Because I was at the development of the planning of Main Street, Amherstview and all that. And they wanted a gate and, you know, some way of making it look homey and that. With high density there, I can't see how you could do that.
Do you think the higher density should be further inland?
Inland or back, something like that, because most of our presentations there showed that it was not near the main, it was within walking distance of the main street, but it was back out of the way.
Right, okay. Well, we'll definitely take
Can I
that.
ask, what is Main Street?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What you're referring to,
Maybe,
Main Street? I
can you-
did see a piece
can you
up
pull
there
that up
about.
there? Yeah, and we'll throw them out here.
Is that on the same thing that you're talking about, sir?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, so when we're talking about Main Street, we're talking primarily the extension here of Amherst Drive. Right? And then you would have this mixed use, which is the new designation that we're talking about. It's popular now. You've probably been seeing it in other municipalities, people talking about these mixed uses. It's actually got an old concept coming back where you have the residential, commercial, it's closer together and segregated. So this, when we're talking about Main Street, it's really here. And right, it's really only this chunk.
yeah, which with the residential or the high density right on the corner, to me, that's like,
Yeah,
that's like, ooh. And then you get into your quaint shops and stores and all that. And I wouldn't think that that's is very attractive or very inviting to people.
fair comment. Just so you know, like, we had 3 different options of patterns that we looked at, right? And based on comments, you know, can you move the park here? Can you move the institutional over here? Yeah. But then all the servicing and everything has to agree to that. And sometimes it's not possible, or sometimes it's cost prohibitive. So we put it where logically, for various reasons, it might work. But we're happy to, from your perspective, to hear what works for you.
It's just was that we did the whole workshop on this Main Street and the development of it, and did you want to see it modern and old town, all this type of stuff? And then boom, on the corner, you're putting a high density building, 8 to 10 stories, like, ooh, yeah.
Yes.
My thought was, any thought been given to extending the bus routes?
Yes, we have looked at that quite intensively with Kingston Transit to see what's possible. I think there was a separate report or analysis done on the servicing for the entire township. And I don't know if you have any information. I know Luke was looking into that, but what the possibilities are for transit expansion. There's some limitations right now, but I mean, these things are continuously being come back and looked at, so.
Yes, so our transportation division, at the moment is looking at, different transit options for the township as a whole. And of course, they're considering the Amherstview West area as well, so that is being considered as part of the study that we would do.
Because you know, having the bus available it makes it possible for people to go to work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and we're looking at it in the context of not just here, but a business park here, and here, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess.
I understand the concern about the optics, but that's gonna be a very busy corner. And I know in the presentation, you talked about transportation, but you're gonna have a lot of traffic there. And you're gonna throw high density on probably the busiest corner of this whole development. I'm no safety expert, but that's an accident waiting to happen when you put a lot of people on the busiest corner of your development.
Yeah.
And we know now what's happening with, you know, just the development on this side. That's gonna be one major intersection.
And there still are challenges to building high density residential. That, you know, we're not gonna fix or deal with here. When the market's right, high density residential. units
Well, I've got
are-
no objection to high density, it's just, I just look at it from more from a safe neighborhood standpoint
Right.
than from a optic standpoint.
Right.
I'm not upset about it.
Yeah.
The folks that have an apartment versus the folks who don't have to, that's not my concern. It's
Mhm.
that-
It's where,
It's just an
it's where it's
action.
shown.
Yeah, it's-
So if I can add as well, one of the studies that have been put together for this project is a traffic impact study. So that is looked at as well. So depending on where you density, how much traffic you're gonna generate, and they they look at. We talked about collector roads, those are designed to get more traffic through. And then there's local roads in between, so that is being looked at as well. It's all part of the engineering studies that have been done as part of this project.
Yeah, and Nadia described very well at the beginning. This is kind of as a guide to following and reading the ton of materials that we placed on our website. There are many technical studies, that's one of them, that probably speaks directly to some of the issues that you're talking about. So get familiar with that document for sure and what's in it, and we'd be glad to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How is this going to affect our water and sewers? Or do we have now? The lagoons by the golf course, they're getting terrible. The odors from them are, can't even sit outside sometimes, it's so bad. How is this going to affect our water supplies, our sewer supplies, and all our infrastructure that we have now?
That's a very good question as well. So we have just completed our infrastructure master plan. We've worked on that project for 2 to 3 years now. Part of the infrastructure master plan is we look at our water treatment facilities, wastewater treatment facilities, our water towers, pumping stations, and we look at current conditions, and then we look at population growth. So although this plan will be put in place and for the next 25 years, when development comes to the door, a project comes to the door, we look at it, okay, how many houses or how many units are being added to the system? The evaluation is done to our treatment facilities to make sure that we have the capacity to approve, let's say, a 200 units development or 300 units development. If our systems do not have the capacity to take the additional population, there's 2 options there. Either council decides that we don't want to grow anymore, so we're not spending money to expand those plants, or the decision is made that yes, we're going to grow and we're going to put money aside to expand our facilities. But all of these, the growth is always like, we do these analysis every day with our treatment facilities to make sure that how are they operating? Right now, most of our capacities do not need to be expanded in the next 15 to 20-year horizon. And we took into consideration this Amherstview West plan, which will add roughly 1,000 units to our plants. And even with the additional units, there is no need for major extension of our systems at the moment.
And I would just add, there was a comment when someone came in about lagoons, and these are not, just to be clear, these are stormwater management facilities, which perform a very specific function, which is to hold back all the rainwater so that it can be properly disposed of. Not lagoons that you're thinking of.
But potentially where could lagoons go,
Could lagoons?
if you had to put a lagoon in there, would it be within that?
No, there are no plans, but.
No, so in order to facilitate the extra growth, we would basically expand the Amherstview sewage treatment.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just made me think of the landfill.
No.
So now, where's for this, John?
So it would be similar, so we're starting, the engineering group is starting a waste management master plan exercise. So we're, the last few years we've been master planning because we are growing, so we need to know, you know, how much growth can this, our infrastructure take. So, they will be looking at populations projection, as part of that master plan. I'm sure we're gonna have some open houses and gonna be lots of opportunity to look at that.
The recycling, I think, has done a really great job because I was on council back in 1985, and at that particular point, the Violet landfill still had 15 years of capacity, and here we are, you know, 35 and more years later.
Where we have the capacity, and there's no doubt that diversion, will also help, preserve some capacity, but, the landfill capacity as well as different options for waste diversion is being looked at. We're just starting that study right now, so I really don't have anything to share at this point, but stay tuned. You know, we're gonna have some public engagement.
Sorry.
Just before we go to the next question, I just wanted to mention that all your comments are being recorded, and will be looked at by the team critically. And at the end of all this, when we come back to council, there will be a table, you'll be able to see all the comments received, how they were considered, and what the end result in terms of our recommendation was.
If the existing lagoons are already presenting a problem to some residents, how can you possibly extend them, make them larger, so that will only increase the problem there? So we all share, you know.
So that's a fair comment, but not all problems are caused by growth. You know, these facilities are, I'm gonna call them bug farms. They're biological and they get upset with, not necessarily, you know, like too much to treat, but also what they're treating. You know, we've had some operational issues at the facility right now that is causing the odor. It's not necessarily growth that we're looking into as well.
Yes, back there.
So I keep hearing 25 years, but and if I just apologize, but I haven't heard what the first shovel into the ground as the David David.
I don't
So,
believe,
sorry, I'm just gonna repeat that, so that the folks online can hear it as well. So your comment was that you've been hearing about the 25-year horizon of the planning, of the secondary plan, but not a start date for development. Anticipated start date, thank you.
yeah, that's not an easy question to answer because we don't have a magic wand or control how the private sector responds to this. We are putting in place all the mechanisms to allow growth to happen, all the approvals that are necessary for what you see here to take place. Whether or not these developers come forward, that depends on market conditions and all these other things. Having said that, though, we are seeing a very strong interest. We've been dealing with 4 or 5 of the larger landowners in this area. We've been meeting with them and stuff. I can tell you that there's an appetite to get going and quickly as soon as these approvals are in place. When that is exactly, I can't tell you. And one other thing, township is the largest landowner in this area. And so we will not be developing those lands. We will probably have them zoned, designated, ready to go, and then declared surplus, and they would have to go through a procurement process to be disposed of. That takes time. But as soon as that process takes place and market conditions are good, things.
So I don't think anyone would hold me to this, but is it, if you said within 5 years,
Yeah, I think you're gonna see something within 5 years. And again, so the way we've set this up, there's a logical extension of servicing that follows this, right? So a lot of the servicing comes from this direction. And some of it from this direction, so that's why it makes logical sense that development starts here. And not leapfrog, because servicing. Too challenging. Yes,
I'm gonna bring up my proverbial. I'm seeing on the plan over there, when you have the designations with different colors.
Yeah.
For the, intended occupation of that space.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be anything in there with regards to dealing with the seniors within the community. Other than you have your high-priced seniors areas, but there's a number of people that have resided in this community for years.
Mhm.
And those are unaffordable. They can't stay in the community and live in those places.
Right.
So I'm looking for something, your developers coming up with something that would be allowed for them to stay at an affordable price. And I've known of 3 different families that have been here involved in this community for years. And because of health issues, had to sell their home. They couldn't find anything to live here in Amherstview. They had to go to Kingston.
But you're speaking about a long-term care facility of some
No, I'm
sort,
not talking
No.
about long-term, I'm
just a
talking
senior's
about,
residence?
for example, I mentioned that to the one lad. You know, the units that are next to the, municipal offices in Odessa.
Oh, yeah.
That idea, where you've got a bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen, a back door, a patch of grass, a community meeting area, the mail's inside, and people can live there, and it's affordable.
Right, right.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what we need here to keep the people here.
Mhm.
They've never applied. They've never applied. Okay, there we go. There are grants, apply for grants.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about.
But I
Yes.
think you brought up a good point with long-term, having a vision for seniors along term care or nursing care or a health facility.
Yeah. Yeah, many
We don't
cases,
have much out here for health facilities. We've lost our walk-in clinics, et cetera, and that. So it's really not a great environment for family extended health or for seniors. So I would like to, or access bus or anyway.
yeah, and Wheel-Trans is also part of that, so. Valid point, very valid point, we will definitely, so we have also engaged periodically in this exercise, some experts on demographics and projections and things like that from Henson. They formed a foundation for a lot of our projections here and are involved in certain very specific things that we require. For example, like how to come up with cost sharing agreements for infrastructure between private land. So they're helping us with that. This would be something that perhaps they have some insights into in terms of the demand for this, specifically in this area. So thank you for the comment. I mean, we will definitely look at it. Thank you. Yes.
For the commercial section, are you, and it's hard to judge, how big that area is on the map. Are you thinking strip malls? Are you thinking, when you talked about groceries, are you talking about an actual grocery store or something like a shopper that we have here?
Yeah, so there's 2 things here. There's a highway commercial, which is this dark purple here. And those kind of uses would include supermarkets and things like that. And here, again, we invite you to take a look, because this is a new category for us, and we put in uses that we think are suitable in there, but that may be something that you want to have a closer look at, see what you think about this that's in there, and provide us some comments. But yeah, so the larger ones with a lot of highway traffic, given the name, right
There's
there.
sufficient room for a box store to go in, I guess that's
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the entrance is going to be off County Road 6.
Mine is much like this lady is here. I would like to see, I appreciate number 4 there, the school being designated for 25 years. But I'd like to see a healthcare center. I'd like to see it designated where it's going to go. So that you can have social services and all of the services they need there to attract the physicians to come into this area.
Mhm.
We can't do it with one team. That's what we have now. One building, one clinic. And we have people out here that don't have any family doctors.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of the situation. It took me
You know what I mean?
forever.
That's where we're coming from. But Kingston raises money and we can bring in doctors.
Mhm.
We haven't, we're unaware, the general public, if you've done any canvassing or anything of that nature in order to try to attract physicians to our area.
Yes.
So I can answer that question because it's part of our strategic plan, part of the strategic plan that council has adopted and our CAO is involved in position attraction, I believe. I'm gonna say one for sure, two now. Okay, so I knew one for sure, but it's up to three now that are going to be moving in the area.
But my understanding, oftentimes when we do, they take over the existing practice, but they're not
That's also-
accepting any new patients.
Yes, and we're aware of that situation, but we do have a group in the municipality that is looking at attraction of physicians.
Well, I was told by Health Connect yesterday that, because we haven't, done any advertising or hired any, this is why we put on the low end of the 9,000 people that just are getting health care.
So Health Connect is okay, it's good to know. I will bring that information back to our CAO, so she can.
Because maybe they don't know that you're getting. But I still would put a healthcare center in now. Then you have to do it within 25 years.
Yeah, there's only so much we can do through a land use plan like this, in terms of solving that problem that exists. There's a lot of other factors that need to go in. We can provide definitely, or look at the possibility of, designating it, and perhaps they will come, but that's not, and so there's gotta be a very creative solution that involves not just planning, but, the medical profession and Ministry of Health has to be obviously actively at the table. And we're not doing that as part of this exercise, but it's a valid thing to do. I absolutely. So we could, we could look at setting some land aside for something like that, institutional purposes.
Desperately, yeah. We have some questions in the chat.
We have some questions in the chat. Can we take a chat question now?
Certainly.
You want to read it up?
Yeah, certainly. So this is from Maddie. Can there be any consideration to adding more pathways from the existing residential areas east of Spears to connect to the new multi-use pink areas, making the area more walkable away from traffic areas?
More than the existing trail system.
On the east, so I think she's referring to the east side of the east side of County Road 6,
Oh, the east
adding
side.
connectivity, if I'm not mistaken.
There's obviously the built up area, there's limitations to what can be done. Andrew, I'm not sure if you're familiar with any plans for the road network east of our, like over here on this side, that are being looked at this time.
Yeah, I'm more, that's already been built up. I'm not aware of anything unless there was anything else.
Yeah, so for any of the, hope she can hear me, but,
I think so.
so basically when we look at, reconstructing a street, or a road, we also look at active transportation. So if there's no sidewalks, we'll consider adding sidewalks, we'll consider adding multi-use path. But if she's talking about Spears moving west, all of this infrastructure has been put in place in the last 15 years or so. So it would be quite a bit of time, I think, to add some more active transportation. So we will take the opportunity to add active transportation as we reconstruct.
And we definitely been making lots of changes on active transportation and trails throughout this process to get the optimal routing and things like that. So, but it's quite a challenge in the existing area, obviously, and more than this. Is there another
I
question?
do have another question in the chat. In the red zone, would the secondary plan be suitable to accommodate mixed-use residential and commercial space below? Or would it be just pure residential? A main street, main floor with residential floors above?
Oh, I see. So the question is for the red,
The red.
high density res, would commercial be considered on the ground floor?
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Ed.
think that so there are policies that are put in the actual official plan amendment to allow that period, that period.
That's great. So I'll just repeat that. Andrea said that in the official plan, there are policies that will be put in place to allow that, what you've suggested,
To look at the amendment.
to look at the, okay, to look at the
But
amendment.
it basically comes down to, the builder and what he wants to put in, right, what's approved.
Can only go so far.
Yeah. And you can see that the high density there probably be one of the first things that shovels in the ground for, because you got one investment with a lot of, places to stay, right? And it's the easiest place probably to tie in road wise, sewer wise, water wise.
Yeah, I looked at all those.
Don't have any other, if there are any other questions from folks who are attending online, you're welcome to speak. If you raise your hand, I can bring you into the meeting. Or, please, feel free to type your question into the chat and we will, read it out in the room here.
We have kind of a few people join us, so we've just finished our presentation. A lot of these slides that we just went through are also on display boards in the back to look at them at your leisure. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you confirm the roundabout? Is it a 1 lane or a 2 lane?
One,
Going the corner of Taylor Cade and County Road 6. Is it a double one or a single?
I know I've seen a lot of traffic about that on social media, about the roundabout that's going in there.
Can someone confirm that?
I will confirm that. For you. Yeah. We have your contact information. I'll confirm it because you know what? It's escaping me right now whether it's a 1 lane or 2 lanes.
I think,
Congestion on County Road 6 is awful.
Okay,
think-
so
I
we'll,
think it's-
we'll get back to you.
Okay. So just on congestion on County Road 6. So Walden Pond and Amherst Drive and Kildare, if those extensions go, will there be lights?
Lights?
Yeah, like
Well,
green.
yeah. So for sure, we're talking lighting, you know, make it here.
I mean, coming out of Walden Pond, I would love for a police officer to sit there, because I'll bet you 95 of them don't, some of them don't stop. And when September comes, when the school buses are there, it's.
Yeah, I don't have the answer for you right now in terms of where the intersection. Go ahead, maybe someone else does.
Hi, I was just gonna say, as part of once this all goes through and we actually get development applications for these, as part of any development application, particularly on any developments along those intersections, every individual application will have to do a traffic impact study that very much assesses their particular development and the impact what exactly they're proposing is gonna have on the road network. And recommendations come out of the traffic engineer that the township gets peer reviewed, and that's where traffic engineers will make recommendations in regards to the lights we put up in turn lanes or things such as that. Once it could also be that maybe the first person who goes, it's only a certain amount of traffic that doesn't trigger a light, and then maybe by the third development application, the accumulation of that then triggers a light or something along those lines. But it is looked at as applications come in at those specific improvements on the road and things such as lights.
Thank you, that's great.
Will this get delayed at all with all the new construction going on in Odessa? My gosh, there's a lot of houses.
Oh, you mean, will there be enough labor to,
Oh, no, and people to move to.
now
Now that
Well-
the plant has been put on hold.
Right.
Which they thought was going to bring so many people to the area.
yeah. Well, funny enough, we, when that was announced, we went to our experts to ask what would be the effect on our projections for this particular area. And they said it wouldn't be that big a deal, in their eyes, based on their study of similar types of factories, in other areas of Canada. And where they draw their labor pool from, it's very broad, something like this. They didn't see a huge impact on this particular area, that's very minor. Fact. But, you know, look, that's all been looked at, in terms of the forecasts, whether they're accurate or not is another question, but we have actually put in policies into this, we will be putting policies into the secondary plan that allow acceleration of these future development plans to come on stream if necessary. So if conditions are such that, you know, this isn't enough for the 25-year horizon, we're gonna reach the 25-year horizon 20 years, then we can accelerate the release of the future development plans. There will be policies that allow that to be done. Any other questions?
If there's anyone else in the online attendance who wants to ask anything, please raise your hand or type your question into the chat. I don't think we have any other questions in the room unless something comes up here in the next moment or two.
So this doesn't apply to the people online, but of course, anyone, you could stick around and walk and look at some of the maps in further detail. And we are here mingling around the room to answer any questions that you might still have, or send us in your questions in writing even better by August 8th.
Just because I can't see very well, I did refer, when we were talking, I'm curious about this Main Street, we're talking Amherst Drive from County Road 6 going in.
West,
Right.
correct.
It's supposed to be a nice village community.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's a great idea. I just
With a
wish
hot
more
rod.
water.
Right.
I told her, I did it.
Yeah, well, we can try and stimulate.
No,
No, it's up.
It's a fire, okay.
Sorry, here.
Oh, right, yes, it's a 24, okay. See, I don't even know.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions in the online attendees. So thank you so much, folks, for attending. Those
Let
of
me
you who
just
are
ask,
joining online.
WSP online, do you have anything to add at this point in terms of the responses to the questions that you heard or anything else?
Thanks, Bowden. I just wanted to, there was a question about the area of the commercial, the highway commercial or the general commercial. Oh darn, I just had my, just 1 second, I had the table. Do you have it here? Thank you. So just to provide a little bit more info on this highway commercial block, this purple here is 4.52 hectares of land. So definitely a lot of area for accommodating, you know, those larger type of stores, grocery store, hardware store, you know, gas station or, you know, something like that. To those who are interested in the Main Street look and feel and kind of the ideas, the urban design, draft urban design document has some photos of what the illustrations of what we're thinking of. Just sometimes the illustrations are easier to understand than text, but it is definitely, you know, that walkable kind of Main Street that you see in many Eastern Ontario communities, that, you know, your traditional Main Street kind of look and feel. So that is what we're envisioning through the Main Street here. And I think those were the only other little points I just wanted to augment with the responses from township staff. Thanks, Bowden.
So those draft urban design guidelines are available on the township's website, on the project page, as well as the slides from today will be posted there as well, tomorrow sometime.
Yep.
And all of the supporting studies that have gone into where we've gotten to so far are there as well for viewing. We encourage people to visit those if you haven't already.
Yeah, we're not printing copies of all this because that wouldn't be politically correct anymore, but they're definitely available online. And if you do require a printed copy of anything, just contact them or staff. But thank you very much for coming and taking shelter from the heat. Have some cookies and coffee, and we'll still be here to answer any questions for a little bit.
Thank you. Thanks. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I've looked at the design. And this isn't like these